Hello everyone, this is FIDE Master Niranjan Navalgund for chess.com, and today I have selected positions from the games of Praggnanandhaa from this Olympiad, and we look at them, and then at the end of it you will be equipped with 5 tips that you could use in your own games. So let's get started. This first position is from the game between Tarigan Gilbert Elroy and Praggnanandhaa, and Tarigan Gilbert Elroy is from Indonesia. And here he has just captured the pawn on c4 with his queen, and he is threatening to play knight e4 given a chance. Praggnanandhaa realizes this and he plays queen to e7 so that knight e4 can be met with bishop c7. And then after queen c2 we reach a very important moment. In your games, when you are not sure about which plan to choose, it is a good idea to consult your pawns. See if there are any possible pawn breaks, pawn levers. A pawn break is nothing but establishing a contact with your opponent's pawn with your pawn, and here c5 and e5 are two possible pawn breaks in this position aimed at solving the problem of this bishop on c8. Once this bishop comes out, we can say that the rooks are connected and we have completed the development, and that is what Praggnanandhaa wants to do. And so he goes for e5, and after knight c4 bishop c7 and captures on e5, you can see that the bishop is finally come out. Now the next thing to notice here is that pawn on a2 is under attack, and Praggnanandhaa's opponent plays a3, and here Praggnanandhaa realizes that there is a drawback with this move, and he immediately takes advantage of this and he plays a5, and after rook d2 he goes a4, because the square on b3 is weakened because of this move a3, and because of that bishop could come to b3 and then the d1 square will be in black's control, and that could mean he could also get the complete d line later. So after a4, rooks c1, bishop b3, queen c3, we reach another important position, and here see if exchanging queens will benefit white or black. Take a moment. Okay, so I'm now going ahead with the move. In this position, exchanging queens will not be of so much help to black because we need to maintain queens to occupy the d line. So he plays queen e7. Exchanging of rooks can be favorable because then we can control the d line with our other rook. So he plays queen e7, and after e3 he plays rook f d8, and then he gets the d line. And after queen c3, black plays queen e4 and is in complete control. And then there is another critical position after king f2. You see that here he voluntarily offers the exchange of queens because he is seeing that he is able to get his rook to the 7th rank. So the rooks belong to 7th rank, and it's often considered as the heaven for the rooks. So in your game, if you get a chance, please go and take your rook to the 7th rank. And after queen to d2, white played e4 and black played queen takes c3. And if you take rook takes c3, rook d2 is coming anyway. He chose to play b takes c3, and then Praggnanandhaa played rook d2. And now you see there are two weaknesses already. If the white rook decides to save the a3 pawn, then the c3 pawn will fall. So then after this, Praggnanandhaa was able to completely outplay his opponent and win the game. So let's move on to the next example. The next position is from the game between Praggnanandhaa and Khacharava Nicolasi. Khacharava Nicolasi is from Georgia. Apologies if I have not pronounced it correctly. In this position it is white to play, and Praggnanandhaa played rook e1 check. He develops the rook with tempo, and after bishop e6 he finds a way to pose immediate problems and plays knight to h4. Now the obvious move g6 fails because if you go g6 there is bishop into g6, and after fg6 knight into g6 is just deadly. In addition to this, there is also f4 after g6, intending to go f5. So in this regard, he played knight to c6 to attack the pawn on d4, and Praggnanandhaa played knight f5 check, and we reach an important position after king d7. Do you want to take the bishop or do you want to take the pawn? If you have decided to take the bishop, good job, that's the right move. If you take knight g7 here, then black gets the central pawn on d4, and it's not a good idea to give up your central pawn like that. So he played knight takes d6, and after king takes d6, the pawn on d4 is attacked, so he plays c3, and now Praggnanandhaa has double bishop advantage. The next critical position is after rook a e8, and here, do you want to play rook takes e8 or do you want to play something else? In this position, Praggnanandhaa prioritizes his development and he plays bishop to e3. And after a5, he plays h3, and after bishop h5, he finds a way to pose problems again with bishop b5. This pin is very annoying. The next critical position is after rook e6. Now here, there's another tip. It's often a good idea to consider improving the worst placed piece in your position. So this is called the Makhagonov's principle, and in a position just look around and see which pieces are not doing much. Can you improve some of them? Talk to your pieces, and in this position the bishop is doing okay, the rook is doing okay. The rook on a1 has no job at the moment, but it cannot come into the game immediately. The bishop on b5 is also doing amazing, but the knight is restricted because it cannot do anything on c5, it cannot do anything on a5. So this is what Praggnanandhaa understood, and he played knight to c1. He improves the position of his worst placed piece, and I think this is a very nice idea to keep in mind. And after bishop g6, he got knight e2, and then he got knight f4. And you see this position, the knight on b3 is now on f4. And then we reach another position after c6. This position is better for white because black has passive pieces and also a bad pawn structure. But what will you do as white? Remembering the lesson from the previous example, ask your pawns, are there any pawn breaks in this position? Yes, there is one. c4 is not a break you would like to make because then it leaves the d4 pawn isolated. So it is b4. And you see, after you capture on a5, then this a5 pawn will become a target. And that's what happened after b4, knight g8, king h4, knight e7. He took on a5, and then that a5 pawn became a target. And then he managed to win the game. Now, on to the next example. And the last example is from the game between Praggnanandhaa and Liu Yan. Liu Yan is from China, and here it's white to move. You can see that white has two pawns on the king side and black has just got one. So it makes sense to create a passer on the king side, and that's what Praggnanandhaa did. The way Praggnanandhaa handled this portion of the game felt like Rubinstein was playing white. You will know what I mean. In this position, Praggnanandhaa went for rook f8 check, and after king a7, he played rook to e8, attacking the pawn on e5, and after rook f6, rook e5, white now has a pass pawn. And then after king b6, f4, rook d6, we have a very important moment. There's a guideline here, a tip that you could use, that the rooks should be placed behind a pass pawn. Your pawn or your opponent's, they should be behind the pass pawn so that they can guide. For example, if this is your pass pawn, then this rook can come to f2 and guide the pawn. Or let's say if it's your opponent's pawn that you're trying to defend against, then you can go behind it and control it. So it's very important guideline, please remember. And that's what Praggnanandhaa did. He played rook e2. Now the idea of rook e2 is twofold. First, he also threatens to go rook f2 if needed, and it also defends the pawn on a2 and b2. That's what I like about this move. And after rook d1, f5, rook g1 check, king f4, rook f1 check, king g5, king c5, the white's pawn is way too faster. After f6, king d4, king g6, king d3, rook g2, now Praggnanandhaa builds a bridge. It's like an umbrella. He goes rook g5, and then he goes rook f5. So after b5, f7, b4, rook g5. Rook f7 is forced because rook f5 is threatened. So after rook f7, king f7, Praggnanandhaa's opponent felt that he might have some chances here, but Praggnanandhaa played some precise moves here. After king c2, he played rook g2, and after king b1, he went a3. Now it's important to calculate this all the way till the end. B takes a3, b takes a3, c5. Now calculate king e6, c4, king d5, c3, king c4, c2. And now if you take rook takes c2, king takes on c2, king b4, king d3, king takes a4, king c4, and it's a draw. This is the first variation that comes to your mind, right? See, king e6, c4, king d5, c3, king c4, c2. And now if you take this pawn, this will lead to a draw. But that's not what Praggnanandhaa did. He had a trick. Everything is right until here, but now there is an intermediate check, rook g1. And if you go c1 queen, white just takes, and then after you take, you go king b4. So in this position, after king b2, you can directly go king b4, because anyway after c1 you just win, and that's how Nihal won the game. So after c1, rook c1, king b4, and then you know black is one move too late. After king c2, king takes a4, king d3 is not in time to go king c4, and after king b5, Praggnanandhaa won the game. So let's do a quick summary. What are the 5 tips? Number 1, when you're not sure about a plan, look for a pawn break. Number 2, take advantage of your opponent's last move by asking yourself what could be the drawback. Number 3, the rooks belong to the 7th rank because the 7th rank is considered as the heaven for the rooks. Number 4, consider improving the position of your worst placed piece. And number 5, rook should be placed behind the passed pawns. That's it. I hope you like this. Consider subscribing to our channel. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.